This morning, Tom Breihan announced that his selection for most important action movie of 1999 is The Matrix. Whew, that was a tough one, man. I was sort of going back and forth between that and Deep Blue Sea. Really glad I got it right. Hi guys, welcome back to my series, Decades of Action Challenge. Yes, The Matrix is a pretty obvious choice. Lucky to guess that one right. I don't expect them all to be that easy. In fact, I've only gotten about 59% of the choices right so far. I started guessing with the 1983 pick, got that one wrong, and I've been right and wrong varying. I only got about 10 out of 17 right so far, so that's less than 60%, unfortunately. Not a great grade, and I don't expect it to get that much better. I'm still trying. I'm hoping that he picks Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon for 2000. We'll see. We shall see about that. So, we're on to 1980 now. We're finally in the 80s. And this film, The Octagon, which was his choice, basically comes down to the introduction of ninjas into popular culture. Breihan has picked The Octagon because you've got, a lot of good ninja fighting in it, which wasn't present in a lot of American movies up until that point. There was a little bit of it, but sort of that sort of was the movie that made them significant, I guess. I'm not really sure how to put it exactly. I was just looking over some of the other movies that he picked, that he was looking at for 1980, and a lot of them are just basically sort of rip-offs of other movies that had come earlier. The exception being Shogun Assassin, which was basically taking two Japanese movies, and combining them into one. And apparently it works way better than it ought to, although I haven't seen that movie, unfortunately. That's one of those well-known classics that, again, I've missed out on. So The Octagon, and what is The Octagon exactly? They don't even say so in the movie. I had to look it up on Wikipedia to find out what the significance of the title was. And apparently it is the structure where the climactic fight takes place, a sort of a space where there's multiple sort of fields of battle, and they have guys basically behind the scenes opening and closing the doors to make sure that people stay in one section and fight it out before they move on again. I don't remember hearing anybody in the movie referring to it as the Octagon, but apparently that's what it is. The director of this movie, his name is Eric Karson. He did a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie called Black Eagle. He did a movie called Opposing Force with Richard Roundtree and Tom Skerritt. And he did a movie called Angel Town with Olivier Grunet. I've seen him in a couple of different films. Most notably Nemesis. That's probably the most high-profile movie that he was in direct-to-video. At least it was direct-to-video here in the States. So yeah, this movie, Breihan openly admits, is not really that good of a movie. It's a pretty messy structure, and I have to agree with that. I watched this movie, and there was just way too many characters in it. There's a whole bunch of plot threads that really don't pay off all that well. There was, in the opening scene, Chuck Norris basically plays a guy named Scott James, who is a champion fighter, kind of a competitive fighter. And he's kind of retired, although he still, keeps himself in very good shape. But he's got sort of a shady past involving some covert mission-type stuff with a guy named, let's see, yeah, that's right, Lee Van Cleef, who of course went on to be in Escape from New York, and was one-third of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly in the Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns. Lee Van Cleef is this guy who he used to sort of operate with, but he's sort of out of the life now. He wants to live quietly, just to compete and practice fighting and live a quiet life, but of course he gets dragged into this whole situation. the opening has him meeting a dancer by the name of Kim Lankford, and you don't actually see the dance that he goes to, the performance that he goes to see, but apparently she incorporates martial arts into the dance itself, and so this interests him. And then she's killed right away. He takes her back to her home, and her family's been killed by ninjas, and she gets killed, and so he goes about trying to figure out exactly what was she involved in. And he ends up running into another lady named Justine, who's played by Carlson, who does this whole sort of song and dance about having a problem with her car, and then she steals his keys, and then he finds her at her home to get his keys back, and then she's just, wants to seduce him and get him to, take out some martial arts masters that are like training terrorists and things like that, and he feels bad about being tricked. And it's this whole sort of winding road to eventually get to the point in which he realizes that his adopted brother, he hasn't seen in decades, named Sakura, has been training these guys basically to do bad things all over the world, and that's what this lady Justine was trying to eliminate. Sakura is played by Tadashi Yamashita, Tadashi Yamashita. Sort of a weird character. We see him practicing his martial arts, and he has some very, very strange facial expressions. It's like going like this as he's practicing with his sort of scythe blades. He's got these mini scythe blades that he fights with. Very, very strange character. And then you've got Scott James's friend AJ, who's also another competitive fighter. Ernie Hudson pops in this movie as well. He's in like 2 scenes. And then you've got Aura, who is basically already training under Sakura, but she realizes she doesn't want to be a terrorist and take orders from them and bad guys like Doggo. Doggo's a guy who wanted to send her on some terrorism mission. Aura is played by a woman named Carol Bagdasarian, right? And Doggo's played by a guy named Grayson. So yeah, there's a whole mess of complicated characters that all sort of, as some of them fall by the wayside, some characters get killed, and other characters move on to sort of, they sort of survive the plot and end up at the big compound where Sakura does his training, so that, Chuck Norris's character, Scott James, can, destroy the place and kill all the bad guys. And Aura, who is this sort of someone who is going to be training to be a terrorist, she ends up defecting and finding Scott James and giving him some information so that he could get there and take out all the bad guys. Yeah, it's pretty messy plot, pretty messy. And there's a lot of scenes of people just sort of sitting around and talking about what they want to do or wouldn't do or that kind of thing, and what lines are you willing to cross, blah, blah, blah. And it's all just, kind of delaying getting to the action, which is, the only really big set piece in the movie is the fight at the end. There's a couple of smaller fights. Chuck Norris fighting the ninjas at that dancer's house, and also he goes to this facility to, he takes on a false name, basically, gives a false name and says he wants to train in ninja arts. He's really there just to gather intel, and he ends up fighting some of those guys. It all leads up to the big climactic fight at the end, so it's kind of a messy movie. Yeah, not one that either I or Tom Breihan would actually recommend, but Breihan picked it because ninjas! There's ninjas in this movie, and that's what made ninjas popular, or it started the trend of making ninjas popular in American action movies, starting at the very beginning of the 80s. So there you go. There's your review. Sorry this one's a little bit brief, but like I said, it's not really something that's significant really in any other way. Obviously, if you're a Chuck Norris fan, you've probably already seen this movie, in addition to, the Delta Force and Missing in Action and the other, stuff he's much more well known for. The next one that I'll be doing, the one for next week, is, of course, 1981, and Breihan was sort of trying to decide between 3 different movies. He ended up picking Raiders of the Lost Ark, which I thought was probably a good choice because it's one of my favorite movies of all time. I haven't actually watched the whole movie from beginning to end in a number of years, but, you know, it's not like I don't know it well. I've seen the whole thing many, many times, so that's the sort of period we're going to be getting into. During the 80s period that we're getting into, there are a couple movies that I haven't seen that much of, maybe only once or twice. In the case of one movie in particular, I haven't seen it at all. Which is a little odd, but you know, hey, that's part of what this is about, seeing stuff that I haven't seen before. But we're sort of getting out of that phase right now because pretty much every movie that's Breihan picks from here on out, he's picked as one that I've seen, you know, several times, if not multiple times. So, Raiders of the Lost Ark is next. If you want to read Breihan's article on the Octagon for avclub.com, he does this whole series called A History of Violence, which he picks the most important action movie of each year, going back to 1968. The link to that is below, as usual, in the description, as is the playlist for all the videos I've done in this series so far, as well as my Facebook page if you want to visit that as well. Thank you very much for watching. Next week, Raiders of the Lost Ark. We'll get to hear my thoughts on that. They're almost universally positive. And of course, Breihan's next article is going to be 2 weeks from now on The Matrix. You know, the latest in his series, and we'll find out whether or not he picked Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon or something else way more obvious. I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. I'm glad that he at least mentioned Ronin in his article on Blade. That was the one that he published today. He published an article on Blade. Anyway, enough of me rambling. Thanks very much for watching. See you again next time. Bye.